Welcome back, episode 2, the Brando show. I know it says Brand from Connecticut, but I'm not in Connecticut. The Cape, I'm in Mick's hood right now. I have a very special guest this evening. I've been a little bit critical of the producers and the show in general. It's Mr. Salt Life. It's Mr. Salt Life himself, Jack Coleman.
Wow. What an honor.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Brando show. Not sure if this will be the last show or what we're going to do going forward. I'm sure all of you have heard that the show is taking a 5-week sabbatical. So who knows? We'll have to see what we end up doing. But tonight I have a very special guest. Been trying to get this guy on for a while, and I finally got him. The circumstances aren't great, obviously, with what happened today, but I'm sure he's got plenty to talk about. You might know him from the Blind Mike Project. Why Are You Laughing? Who Are These Socials? The guy's a jack of all trades, and, I consider him a good buddy at this point. So let me just stop talking, and I'll get my good buddy Blind Mike Geary in here.
Brando, we're going to get through this together. How are you, pal?
Wow. This is incredible, Mike. I greatly appreciate you giving me some of your time to come on my show.
I'm here for you, buddy. You sounded broken up on the phone, so I wanted to be here to console you.
On the phone call today?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I fell asleep for about an hour. And when I woke up, the desk was missing. I was watching it on TV. All of a sudden, there's no desk in front of Kirk. And I was running late to go pick my girlfriend up. So then I get in the car and I see Twitter. I'm like, April 16th? What the hell is this talking about? What the heck is going on? I'm half awake. I'm rushing around. And then I'm like, oh, man, they're taking calls. I'm like, I got to at least try to get a call in before the break,
Of course, yeah.
Try to put in my last little tidbit. I mean, I thought Brando, like, speaking for myself, I thought I had a pretty decent 72 hours or so. I really enjoyed going on the show. Laconia was awesome. And then between, some of the stuff from Mick last night and then today, I was just a little down in the dumps. I don't know. How are you feeling about everything, Mike?
It is a shame the week of Brando was tainted in this way. I agree with you, but I'll say I guess I wasn't as shocked. You were obviously very shocked. Justin was very shocked. I guess I just kind of readied myself when Kirk mentioned it a few weeks ago. He said after Laconia there's going to be a break. I didn't know exactly when. I didn't know it was going to be the day after or the Monday after, whatever. I guess I just heard 6 months or whatever it was originally. And then today when I heard 5 weeks, I was actually kind of like, oh, that's not so bad.
You prepared yourself for the worst?
I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned it, or Justin mentioned it on the show today. He said, well, you said like he did like the, Wolf of Wall Street thing where he's like, we're not going anywhere, like at the end of the show saying, oh, we're not taking a break. And I remember in that moment, I was like, oh, nice. Like, we're going to keep going. I can't wait to hopefully be back on. I was hoping they were going to have me back on within a month or two. I get another shot. I mean, it's just been a roller coaster of emotions. So him saying that had me riding high and hanging out at the Montante mansion and everything. I was just riding on a high, and then I just got whacked.
Yeah, I couldn't really hear when he announced that, when he said we're doing 4 days a week. I couldn't hear exactly what he said, so I'm not sure. But I I was under the impression he meant like outside of the break. Like I thought he did say there was going to be a break at some point, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it seemed like you couldn't hear much of anything during the show.
I had a tough time at the beginning. I was a little better, but if you go back, like if you were able to watch the beginning, like rewatch it now with this perspective, you would notice that my answers didn't exactly line up with what Kirk was saying because I was kind
Right.
of guessing what he was asking. Like I had a vague idea. So I had sort of a tough time, but better than a lot of the other live shows or theater shows, I should say. And then as it went on and the crowd got crazier, it was harder and harder for me to hear. And I was a little glad, not glad, but like it made me feel a little better when he turned and said something at Cullinane, and Cullinane was like, I can't fucking hear you. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's not just me. Because there are points where I'm like, I'm blind, not deaf. Why can't I hear this fucking guy? But it's just difficult with the way it's set up.
That's the part that you're relying on. So if you can't hear, then you're in a lot of trouble up there.
Right, exactly.
So what I usually do is grade the shows of the week, or kind of there's a grouping of shows that I haven't got to once I do my show. So the last show I did was when Clemmer and Steve Your Live to Tape was in last Monday. So the first show that I wanted to go through today is I guess you could count as a show. We'll just talk about it briefly. Maybe him coming in for the Ted Sandis news. How did you feel about Ted and that show?
Oh, it was very, very sad to hear, obviously, especially when a guy's young like that. And Ted Sandis was, I don't know about literally first, but like definitely one of the first names I remember subscribing to my Patreon, and one of the first guys that would comment on stuff. And not a huge fan, but a supporter, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could tell just by that he's a guy that obviously loved KMS and loved supporting the show and everything. And kind of cool. I don't know of a ton of podcasts that have this. Like as big as Joe Rogan is, I don't know how many obituaries are like, and he was a Joe Rogan fan. You know what I mean? Like I just don't know how many. And you see that with like people's Twitter bios and stuff all the time, where it's like Minifan. But in an obituary, it really sinks in, where you're like, this is a lot of people's identities being a fan of this show, which is a really cool thing. So obviously very sad, and I'm sure the people in the Ted Sandis Memorial chat miss him right now because he was always involved in these things.
Yeah, you're a pretty big Joe Rogan guy overall, but it's
I don't
not
know
exactly.
About that.
I thought you're pretty into him, but maybe you just
I listen when I like the guests.
Same. That's kind of where I'm at. Sometimes I try to listen and I just totally tune out and say this one isn't for me. But there's no like Roga fans. There's no like people aren't making that their life. It's like something to listen to, in my opinion. But there's not this outside community. He's not interacting with the fans. It's not like somebody like me could go on the Joe Rogan Experience and screw around,
Yeah. And there's not a Joe Rogan fan that's angry today that has people on Twitter being like, why is this guy so mad? I'm referring to Mick, obviously, where people are like, why is this guy pissed off? Or he has a right to be pissed off. Like just the conversation around the show is unlike any other, obviously. And I think Ted Sandis was a good example of that.
Yeah, that's true. What the funny thing about Ted is, I wish I got into the network stuff a little sooner because he seemed like a cool guy. I didn't really know him, but he had some pretty funny tweets that I was included in, like top 5, like people who shouldn't have a show, or like worst network performers. So I had a little tweet that was just like, "Oh, sorry. I hope the Brando show didn't, put him over the edge or anything like that."
Well, I think he's a guy that just liked giving his opinion, but he didn't want to be out there. He didn't want you to know his name. He didn't want clout, as they say, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because I remember when he was saying stuff about my show early on, I was like, I messaged back and forth with him a little, and I said, "Would you want to come on to like debate this with me?" Because I remember, I can't remember what it was, but like he disagreed with something about the show. I was like, this could be interesting if he and I go back and forth. And he goes, "No, I'm not interested in that." Like a very, very polite, very nice guy. Didn't want to be, just kind of enjoyed commenting and being involved in that way.
Yeah, like oddly normal too, like compared to some of these people.
Yeah, as far as like people that criticize shows go, yeah, that's very rare because usually it's one extreme or the other, and
Yeah.
usually one where it's like just insanely negative. And that's all show. Like if you look at any YouTube comment section or Reddit or anything like that, it's usually extremely negative. Whereas my recollection of him is being pretty level-headed.
Yeah, I mean, he would be, like, kinda going at people, but it was in a fun way, busting balls and stuff like that, it seemed like. It was never malicious.
Right, right. Or never over the line or anything, you know?
Yeah, there weren't kids involved
Right,
or anything
right.
anything crazy, so, in honor of Ted Sandis, I'm gonna give that show 100, the first 100 on the Brando show, just in honor, and go ahead, Mike.
I agree with you. I was gonna say 100 as well. You know, but like, I think it was like a 25-minute show, right amount of time, nothing too
Yeah.
crazy. I think Ted would have agreed. That was a perfect 100.
And what other show, what other podcast, kind of speaking on what you said earlier about the Kirk Minahan show, what other podcaster is going to come in, take time out of his day to do a short show about a fan that passed away?
Exactly. Yeah, I can't think of one. I've never seen it before. So that's another. And just that speaks to like with the Minifans and stuff this weekend where they drive up together, they rent houses together. Like it's
Yeah,
bizarre to me. I can't imagine ever doing it, but it is actually very cool to see when it's like it's built a community and these people have built friendships and they keep in touch with each other and um enjoy getting together. It's very interesting, very cool.
yeah, that's like what happened for me this weekend. Is I met all these people that I've known through the show and interacted with on Twitter, and I met so many, like pretty much everybody you can think of, and started like a little friendship. And now it's like, damn, no show, but at least we still have the community. And I think with Kirk doing the dozen, doing mini golf, doing unnamed, at least there's going to be some stuff to talk about. So I think I
Yeah.
can keep this going, and the network can kind of keep thriving while he's gone.
That's interesting too. You bring up a good point where like he's still doing unnamed every week, which is
Right.
how often most podcasters are on
Yeah.
entirely. Like most people do one show a week. He's going to be on once a week, and people are like, "What the fuck are we going to do?"
Yeah. The world's ending.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes when you're a Minifan. It's a roller coaster sometimes.
Yep. Absolutely.
So that was the quick little Tuesday show, and then Wednesday it was you and Birdman in studio, and that's when they were trying to get you to go on the Disney trip with Justin and his family.
Oh
What did you think
God,
about that?
I forgot about that. Hopefully, that's the one good thing about this hiatus. Hopefully, everyone forgets about that by the
Yeah,
time
yeah.
by the time we get back.
You're praying.
Disney for me is just not a. It doesn't entice me. It doesn't seem like
No?
something I would enjoy fucking navigating around. I do like roller coasters and stuff, but there's nothing specific to Disney. If I wanted to go to a roller coaster, I could go to Six Flags or something, And there's nothing specific to Disney where I'm like, I have to go see that.
Yeah.
However, I do understand the content value
Oh, yeah.
of particularly if it was all of us. If it's me, Kirk, Dave, Justin, Justin's mom, and Justin's mom's friend, I
Yeah.
understand why that's funny. So
Yeah,
I'd grit my
it's
teeth and get
outrageous.
through it, but I don't love the idea necessarily.
I mean, if you want a roller coaster, I'm sure Alba could like pop you in the car and maybe take a quick
Just simulate, yeah,
right around town
go
or
up some bumpy
something. So
roads.
you don't need to be bumping into Mickey Mouse and Goofy and stuff like that. And
Exactly.
it must be tough, too, as a blind guy to navigate something like that, and all the people. Seems like it would be a nightmare.
Oh yeah, I've gotten to the point where I just hate walking around and like navigating on my own
In
anywhere.
general.
You know what I mean? Like I told the story today that I got out of Julie's car and she said turn right, so I did. And
That
if
was
there
funny.
wasn't some good Samaritan there, I'd still be fucking wandering through Laconia right now. So it's a pain in the ass in general. So a place like Disney is a nightmare.
It sounded like he was a Minifan too, right? Because he said, "Hey,
Yes.
Mike."
I
Yeah.
think the only human beings in the town, you had employees of places, the hotels, the restaurants, whatever. And then the only other human beings were Minifans, I think. I didn't run
Oh
into a
yeah.
non-Minifan. the whole weekend, to my
It
knowledge.
was like a ghost town. I was kind of driving through a little bit, like when trying to get to Montante's mansion and get to the show. And I'm pretty sure the people that I saw were Minifans walking around. I didn't. It was very odd.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, but I don't know much about Laconia, New Hampshire, but it does seem like a built-up enough city that you'd think human beings would live there. And like the Cape is a little different, where it's more rural. You have these like little
Yeah.
Cape houses in these neighborhoods. Laconia feels like a city, so you'd think it would be populated in the winter, but it didn't seem to be.
Definitely not. There was not much going on other than that show.
Yeah.
Let's see what else from that Disney show. That was the main thing. The Alec Baldwin show debuted, and I know you're big on that. I've heard you talk about it on the Blind Mike Project. What do you got to say about that guy?
Yeah, I love Alec Baldwin. I think he's kind of made a fool of himself in a lot of ways over the last few years, but I do love him in many ways. And I think on that episode we also talked about the guy that was harassing him outside of his house, right? The Donald Trump impersonator. I think that's when that video came out.
I think you briefly went over that. Unless it was a different show, but I think you're right.
Yeah, and so I went on my show and talked about it a little more, and we played the video and stuff. And I got comments from people saying like, "Mike, don't be a pussy. At least this guy had the balls to say it to his face. He's not at his house. He's on a sidewalk. That's government
But he's
property."
just being annoying. He's just being annoying.
I was like, yeah, you might be right on technicalities where he's on a sidewalk or whatever, but you know what I mean. This guy's going out of his way to harass a stranger that he doesn't know in front of it with his kids inside and all that shit. Like, I think there's a line to that stuff that I'm sometimes amazed that people don't understand.
Right. It sounds like he was doing his best Kane and Laconia impression with the old red carpet Kane that we got.
How was Kane during the show? I hear so in the green room, we could hear anything they did on mic, so we could hear the rehearsal and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then during the VIP, I couldn't hear the audience, but I heard Kirk reprimand Kane a couple times. Was he doing all right?
Yeah, he was doing all right. I'm kind of busting his chops a little bit. He was doing like a red carpet thing and trying to talk to different Minifans, which I thought could be a decent idea in theory. He also had Jake on with him, which Jake he's kind of out there sometimes. Okay. I don't know if you really know him, but
I don't know that I do.
No, it's not really a bad thing necessarily. But no, Kane was into it. He's a big fan. Sometimes he goes over the top. He knows that, but everyone was just having fun kind of in their own way. It seemed like it was awesome. It was amazing time.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Let's see. Harry Potter with John Lithgow. I don't remember, honestly, not too much other than the Disney thing was the big
Oh, I
thing.
forgot that did make me laugh when Justin brought up the John Lithgow thing and Culliнаne's just utter annoyance at it. It did make me laugh. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean, little tidbits, I guess, here and there. So I think that's the majority of what happened on that show. And between you had Birdman, and I'm gonna start with Birdman. And I think I made a joke on my appearance where I said, "Was Birdman in?" Because he was on. I think he went to the Bish. I think he went to the Bish School of Third Chairs. He didn't say more than like 4 or 5 things that I can remember.
See, I don't remember him being that quiet. I look at Birdman as a guy that kind of perfectly knows his place. I've heard him in there where maybe he's in with someone that doesn't talk as much. And so he'll kind of pick up the talking, but with me, Dave, Justin in with Kirk, maybe he didn't need to say as much. But I remember him interjecting what I thought was a normal amount. So I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, I gave him a 76. I thought it was an average appearance. I don't think it was anything special, but I guess there's a spectrum from him to me, or even like a Stein is even further on that side of me where he's just like going in. I interjected more than I probably should have, but I think
I don't know about that. I thought you were I'm sure we'll get to you, but I think you did a surprisingly good job. But I'll give you my feedback on you. This is Birdman's time.
Oh yeah, sorry, Birdman. I didn't mean to cut into your time. What did you get? What would you give Birdman a grade wise?
I'll give Birdman an 85, solid B.
Oh
Did
wow, all
did
right,
what he was supposed to do, I thought.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I don't know if you're gonna grade yourself, but I usually give you around a B. You're just steady. You're you. I
Thank
mean,
you.
I don't know if it's good or bad. Some you have a lot of good quips. You got you got good one-liners, but I don't always remember like different things that you said during the show.
Oh man.
You're a good laugher. You're a lot better at Ted with the laughing. I'll tell you that. We know you don't like him.
I didn't realize I was so irrelevant in the Brando world.
Well, I didn't mean to come on and insult Mike Geary, but shit happens.
Sometimes I
Yeah.
need it. I need to be taken down a few pegs.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you an 86 because I thought it was a pretty decent performance by you
right.
on that day.
I'll
You're gonna
recuse
grade
myself
yourself or
from
no?
grading my.
Yeah.
I'll agree with whatever you say because you're the man listening that has to listen to my voice. So I'll agree
Right.
with you.
I'm probably gonna do something similar for mine as well, as far as a grade itself.
Okay.
But so then then there we go. We get to Thursday.
The big day.
One of the biggest days in Brando's life, if I'm honest.
Wow.
On
And
the
mine
way
as
there,
well. Yeah.
just why?
Just getting to meet you.
Wow, that's incredible. I didn't know I had that kind of effect.
You really did.
So on the way there, I thought I left with plenty of time, right? I start hitting traffic and my mind starts racing, my heart's racing. I'm like, wow, am I gonna screw this up and like be late and then Kirk's not even gonna let me into the studio, or am I gonna look like an ass because I don't respect the show? And I'm thinking, wow, like I might have fumbled a great possibility, but I did make it on time. I made it with about 20 minutes to spare.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I saw you go down that one hallway and then it's just you sitting there, like either kind of staring ahead or staring at your phone
Yep.
silently. And everything just started to hit me and then my heart's racing. And that's when I kind of nervously was just talking to Fax because I know him a little more than you guys. Like I've actually talked to him a little bit, so I felt comfortable with him. And I like him. He's boring. He's not really, he's kind of worthless, but he's a nice enough guy. And so I just nervously was like talking to him, and then you heard me. I'm like darting around. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to Justin. I'm like in the room, coming back in. You guys are probably. I mean, what went through your head during that time before the show?
I'll be completely honest with you. I was nervous when you came in because you're very loud. You just started yapping, and it's the opposite vibe of Kane knows this. It's the opposite vibe of anyone else in there. Where we all are pretty much very quiet, especially when it gets to be like I remember it being 9:57, like Kirk's almost walking in. And you were like, boy, you guys are awfully quiet in here. And I remember Justin getting nervous. I don't know if it was nervous for himself or nervous for you, but I could tell he was kind of like, shut the fuck up. And you were, so I was like, this guy isn't going to shut the fuck up today. It's going to be exactly like Stein last week. And then for whatever reason, when Kirk walked in, you were perfect. You just totally switched gears. You got the vibe of the show. It was total. I had my concerns were unwarranted because you completely fit and did exactly what you needed to do that day.
Well, here's the thing. As a Minifan for so long, I know the rules. I know when Kirk Minahan is in there, there's no more chatty Cathy time.
Right.
And also, I'm terrified when he walks in because it's like Jesus has just walked in front of me and went and sat down across from me.
Sure.
So once he walked in, I felt like I had a frog in my throat for at least the first 10 minutes. My heart was beating out of my chest. I was doing breathing exercises. I was trying to slow my breathing down because it's just a surreal moment when you watch it on YouTube and you listen and then you're actually in there and you're a part of it. It's very weird. It's very surreal. So I understand where you guys were coming from because you don't know if I'm just going to start ranting and raving or if I'm going to be like Stein, I'm going to be all over the place.
Yeah.
But I knew my place as soon as he walked. Once I saw him, I said, this is his show. I'm not here to make it the Brando show. I'm here to just put any input I can that'll hopefully help the show.
Yeah. And you might like it maybe we should think like, oh, this guy listens to the show. He must know the vibe and everything. But we were just coming off of literally 1 week earlier where a
Yeah.
guy who supposedly listens to the show brought fucking watermelons and chains in.
Yeah.
So you never know who's going to walk in there necessarily. So yeah, like I said, I was a little nervous at first, but I thought you did a great job. I was very pleasantly surprised once you settled in.
Yeah, well, I do appreciate that. And then the first 10 minutes felt like about 10 minutes or so. I was obviously nervous too about Gene Hackman dying the night before. I thought that could have easily derailed the show for me and derailed my opportunity that I've been waiting kind of so long for. So there are a lot of thoughts going through my head. And he went for about maybe 10 minutes or so at the beginning of just Gene Hackman talk.
Mhm.
And I just, I don't think any of us interjected too much other than he might have asked me or you like about different movies
Yeah.
that he was in and stuff like that. But we kind of let him go for 10 minutes or so about Gene Hackman, it seemed like.
Yeah, I don't think he has any interest in hearing me or Cullinane or Justin's thoughts about Gene Hackman. I think he could
Right.
maybe if like Clemmer or Jeff D. Lowe was in or something,
Yeah.
he would have had more of a. I don't think he gives a fuck what I think about Hoosiers. You know?
Yeah. And I wouldn't know Gene Hackman if you put a picture of him in front of me. I mean,
Oh,
I
wow.
might have seen a few of those movies. I'm not a massive movie guy.
Okay.
I like movies, but I go like to the movies here and there if there's something that really like I went to Oppenheimer.
Sure.
I've gone to like some of the big movies that you kind of have to see, Joker, different stuff like that, but I'm
Mm.
not like a movie buff, so I actually had the YouTube thing going on the way with some Gene Hackman his best parts and his best lines and stuff just to kind of I don't know what it was supposed to do, but I was like, well, I might as well try to
That's good. That's
kind
good prep. I like that.
well, yeah, I mean, I didn't want to just be totally in the dark.
Yeah.
Because the funny thing is, as you know, I had all those notes, and it ended
Yes.
up having him come back to me over and over. And I think the notepad kind of screwed me in that way because I was like, he's like, what else you got there? And I'm like, well, I've already kind of gone through everything. So, um, but during the show, we talked about Freddie taking a break, and
So
Coleman was so confused with that audio.
yeah, so it seems like that's a joke, right? That he's that's
I
not,
don't
well,
know.
maybe it is happening now, but it
Yeah, I
seemed like that
mean,
was
it
a
might
joke
not
at the time.
matter,
Yeah.
I guess. And then we were talking about Monica Lewinsky a little bit. That wasn't really anything too major. We were just kind of talking
Right.
about how it's weird that she doesn't want to talk about the literal only thing that made her famous, which is a
Yeah,
little
it's
odd.
strange to do a podcast. Like if she wants to work in accounting or whatever, like in a law firm,
Yeah,
wherever the fuck she wants to work. If she wants to do that and it has the expectation of no one bothering her about the scandal, that's perfectly within her rights. But to do a podcast and be like, why would you like to want to be a celebrity and think, why would anyone ask me about the one thing I'm famous for? Like, that's just
right.
silly. It's similar, not exactly the same because she was like an intern. She wasn't an actress that wanted to be in movies or anything. But it's kind of similar to when like Jaleel White doesn't want to be asked about Urkel or something. It's like, well, that's what are we
Yeah,
going to talk to you about then? That's all we know you from.
yeah. It's a little bit odd, and I need to cut in real quick because I didn't give the Wednesday show a grade, and I'll give that a quick little 82 B minus. What did you think about yours and Birdman show? Just give it a quick grade for me.
I'll give it a 90.
Well, seems a little biased, but all right. I think we talked about Pat Beverly briefly. That wasn't much of anything. And then the Menor stuff, which was very confusing in the moment because I don't think Cully and Justin knew the context really of what Menors was getting mad about. He was, and we tried to call him. It would have been great to have him on, but
I can't. Can you refresh my memory? Because I remember thinking that. I remember thinking they took him out of context. I didn't quite understand it myself.
he was mad because people were getting on his case because he had the comment on the eulogy and he somehow compared it to like Kirk fucking around with stuff on the show. If I'm remembering it correctly, he just made a comparison of like, oh, Kirk can joke about this, or that, and I make a joke out of eulogy and people are losing their minds or
What was
something.
his joke about the eulogy? Do you remember?
I thought he made a post that said something about the guy loved all my network stuff and he was a big fan of the network, like kind of a little tongue in cheek like comment on the obituary
Yeah, I thought
online, I think.
my recollection is that we laughed at that, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. It was very convoluted in the moment. Um but that's kind of what happened there. Like I said, if he would have got on, I think we could have got further explanation, but he was
Sure.
I guess he was asleep because it was like 4 in the morning or whatever in Australia at the time.
Yeah,
Are you a Menors guy?
I am a Menors guy. Yeah, I think it's. I think sometimes he takes things too seriously, which is also funny. And
No.
I think other times, I think he is in on the joke more than he wants to let on at times as well. So yeah, I like Menors.
Yeah. Um I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one. But
You're not a fan.
I'm a fan. He's given me my, he I owe him for letting me be on the network, but me and him
Sure.
have had a little bit of a battle going back and forth lately.
Well, that's how it is with guys like talent and management. Like you're gonna have to deal with that if you want to be in podcasting. The suits are always gonna try and keep
The
a guy
man's
like you
always
down.
coming down on you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Maybe you're right about that. Maybe it's just part of it, and I appreciate that you called me talent. I do appreciate that. I think it's a little bit misguided, but
No,
I do appreciate it.
in the eye of the beholder,
So
I suppose.
yeah, everybody's into something. I
Yeah.
I do want to say that in the live chat, people seem to be a fan, even of like the quirkiness. And I don't know how much you can see, or if you really even watch the YouTube after to see the replay. I'm guessing you don't. I was
No,
fidgeting a lot. I don't know if you could tell in the moment. I was kind of moving around a lot, drinking my
I
water a lot.
early on I noticed like that you were shaking the papers a little bit, which I thought might be like kind of a nervous energy.
Yeah.
But I thought you settled down as it went on.
Well, I was doing a lot of like facial fidgeting and like moving. Like I couldn't look Kirk directly in the eye. Like he seems like not an eye contact person in that way. So I kept like looking around. And also, I have this issue where I always look at someone when they're talking. So my head is darting around. I look directly at you when you said something. I'm looking through the glass at Cullinane and Justin, because I don't know, it's like a respect thing or what it is, but I always try to look someone straight in the eye when they're talking to me,
Hmm.
and nod my head and stuff like that to let them know that I'm listening. So I kind of look crazy with my head bobbing around everywhere.
Well, you know what's interesting though about your appearance, Brando? You're a piece of history. Now that I think about it, because other than me, Mutt, and Coleman, who have all been in there a bunch,
Yeah,
you're the last guy to ever be in that version of the studio. Justin's going to completely redo it, supposedly. So you might be the last. You're definitely the last guy to ever see that desk. You might be the last guy to
yeah,
ever see those walls or the thing that Steve built, whatever the fuck you
all the
call that. Any of that stuff.
beautiful stuff in there.
Yeah.
It was much smaller in person too. I don't know if other people have said that. I thought it
Oh,
was much
really?
bigger of a room from watching it on YouTube. It's very much tighter than I thought it would be.
You know, it's funny you say that because I think a lot of podcast studios are even smaller than that. Because
Wow.
I think a lot of people think that, and usually it's smaller. I would say that's sort of a big space as far as podcast studios go. Because I think generally, like for sound purposes, you want it as small as you can while
Yeah,
still somewhat comfortable. But
like to help with the echo and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just learning this stuff myself now. I mean, I just got the fancy mic from the girlfriend. And she got me a headset, and I just needed an adapter that was supposed to come in today to be able to plug it into the laptop. But we'll see if I end up needing that, or if Brando goes into the win. Well, I mean, only time will tell.
Well, but it's 5 weeks is not that long at the end of the day, Brando. I think
I
you'll be
might be
all right.
overreacting. I might be overreacting.
I hope so. Anyways, maybe you're not. Maybe the worst has happened, but I think 5 weeks is not that far away.
That's true, and the reason I sounded so shocked was just because it was one of those times where you wake up and you just get this news and you're like, what? And you're kind of your head is spinning, and I didn't know exactly what it meant, and I don't know. I know it sounded kind of like I was about to cry on the call from what I can
It was
tell.
it was a rare, sweet moment. There was no sarcasm in what you were saying, no joke, punchline. It was just it was a nice moment. I thought it was touching.
Right, and I think I kind of figured out the call-in thing because you've heard my other calls where I just completely bomb trying to do a bit, or
Yeah.
my audio is horrifying, and Kirk is just like, "I like you, but we're gonna have to hang up because your audio's, your audio is terrible."
Yeah, that may be your thing. Just
Just be
sweet little
genuine.
moments. Yeah.
That's kind of what I think has drawn some people to me, is that I'm just being real. Like on the podcast, I opened up about addiction and about some of my medical history, and even just like I think people even like the fact that I said I was nervous. Like I just admitted, like I'm very, very nervous. Like I'm not afraid to say it. I'm very nervous.
Well, I remember you being funny. You made me laugh a few times too. You were funny on the show, so I think you
Yeah,
did
I
a
had
very
some
good
good
job.
ones. I think
Yeah.
I had you laughing a couple times.
You're very humble. I like that about you.
Yeah, incredibly humble. I try to be because yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to have fun, and we wouldn't be here without Kirk. So, well, yeah,
You
I'm
said it, my
still a little
friend.
sad. I'm still a little sad.
We'll get through it together, buddy. We've got.
We'll try at least.
I saw on Twitter right before we started that we have Chris Clemmer's Orlando Magic streams. So that's
Oh man.
something
Well,
worth living for.
now that you bring that to my attention, I definitely want to live.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. I'm glad I can help you heal.
I can't wait for that. Chris Clemmer hammered off like 6-ciders talking about
Penny
Felice
Hardaway.
Yeah, Penny Hardaway and Harvey Lick or something. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. But I do like Clemmer. He's supposed to come on. He might come on next week if there's still a show. I had just lined him up for next week after you.
Well, what are you
So-
thinking? Obviously, you can't do the same format, but would you do? Do you still want to do a show of some kind, or do you just want to review the show?
I've seen some different stuff where people are saying maybe I should do like a Quantum Kirk thing where I choose a couple episodes and I review those, and maybe I
Oh.
release it earlier in the week and say, hey, if people want to listen to these 3, and then I'll go through them.
That's a good idea. I like that.
I also had a segment last week with Menners where I graded the network shows, so I can also always do that if there's still going to be network shows. We know Mike and the Minifans is up in the air. We know Fireside Chat is up in the air. And I would like to do something, but obviously it's not going to be the exact same thing because I'm very oriented on having shows to go over.
Right. Well, good.
So-
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because I think people are going to be going back to their old shows, so that would make sense. I like that idea.
Yeah, we'll have to workshop it and see what me and the Cane Train come up with.
Yes.
he's the brain trust, so I got to go to him on that one.
I like that. It's quite a team you've got working.
Yeah, unstoppable.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's kind of the long and the short of my appearance. The other one thing that's popping in my head is that window is humongous to the producers. I thought it was for some reason like a small window. I don't know why I thought that, but the glass is very big. It's like the whole size of the wall.
Well, Steve cut that. That was a full wall before, and Steve, I don't know. I don't think Steve physically did, but Steve had someone cut that out to make the producers.
The
do
guy
it.
from downstairs came up
Yeah,
with
yeah,
a
yeah.
saw.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe Dickens. Oh, that was probably too early for Dickens, actually.
Too early for Dickens. Could have been
Pre
Kirk's
Dickens.
painter. I'm not really sure, but it was somebody.
That's true. That was just one other thing that I noticed in the moment.
Mm.
So for that show, for you, I'm gonna give you a 90 because you laughed at a bunch of my stuff.
That's what I'm there for, Brando.
Yeah, you are the laugh track of the Kirk Minahan world. And
Yes.
even I've seen you've come a long way from the beginning. I don't think you had the confidence, especially before you went away on your break. You did not have the confidence that you do now to kind of roll with the punches. And I don't know. Before you just seemed to kind of sink into the chair a little bit more, and you weren't as confident in what you were saying. From what
I've
I
heard a
could
lot of
tell.
people say that, so that's probably true.
Yeah. So I gave you a 90. You're not going to grade yourself, you said. So I'm not going to grade myself. You can give me a grade if you want for my appearance.
Brando, I'm going to give you a 99, and that's not just because I'm talking to you. I'll give you. I took a point away because I said, like I said, room for improvement. You were a little nervous at the beginning, so maybe that's something you could correct next time. But other than that, I'm grading a little bit based on expectations. Like I said, you came in very loud. I didn't know what to expect. So based on that, I'm giving you a 99. Way better than I expected you to be, if I'm being honest.
Well, I do. That's awesome, especially from a legend like yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm not gonna give myself a grade. Never mind. I said I wasn't gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. Kirk
What would you?
Minahan says
Well, you don't do it. But what would you if you
what
had to
would
give
you do it?
yourself a grade?
Don't do it, but just do it.
Don't do it. But like if you had to, if you were gonna do it, what would it be?
I thought it was like slightly above average. Like I thought half of my stuff fell kind of short. Like some of my one-liners got eaten up by the conversation. I butted in a little too much. I had a couple ticks where I just went like mammy and different random stuff like that. That was like, oh, you didn't need to interject at that exact moment. It's a timing thing for me, I think, that I could get over time and I could get better at it, I think.
Well, it's very self-aware. I respect that. And I think Kane said that it was the greatest hour of broadcasting in human history.
I was very uncomfortable.
Kane said you're the greatest man to ever speak into a microphone.
I think he was going to perform I thought he was going to perform fellatio on me live on the Kane's Corner.
Well, that's a good producer, though. You want that kind of loyalty from your producer. So I respect
Do you?
that.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but that, yeah. I thought I did fairly well, and I thought there's room for improvement, so that's kind of why this hurt today, because I thought I was on a little bit of a roll.
You were coming for my job. You were saying Brando's going to be on twice a week.
Did I?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I didn't think that got back to you. So
there he is.
There he is. Not bad. Not bad for a random kid from Connecticut. Anyway. All right. So that show, I thought it was honestly, I'm going to grade the show in general. I thought it was the best one of the week, probably. I'd give it like a 90, an A minus. I think because it was a good flow. The one thing was it was quick because of it did fly by because we had to go right into unnamed after, which might have helped me maybe.
True. Yeah.
What did you give that show, the whole show?
I'll give it a 92.
Okay.
That
was the same range?
Yeah. Good, solid show.
Very good show, if you will.
I would never say that. No.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't dare. I'm not a big Ironhead guy, so.
Well, who is Brando? You know, get in line.
That's fair. Join the club, as they say. All right, so then we come into Friday, where we get Coleman in, which I thought that was kind of funny little thing. It's like we got the phone call Friday, and Coleman is just there, which is pretty funny to me that he's just kind of there.
Yeah,
I guess they were filming
a nice
stuff,
treat.
or was he just in the area?
You know, I actually don't think they were. I could be wrong about that, but I thought he was just in the area because he was coming up for the live show. So I thought he was like maybe stayed in Boston with a friend Thursday night or something like that.
Right.
So I think he just happened to be in the air and popped in on Friday. But yeah, it was nice. I said this on the show and I said it on Mike and the Minifans, but I'll say it again because that's how strongly I feel about it. I would have lost a ton of money if you gave me good odds that Coleman was going to be back on the show or wasn't going to be back on the show. I would have lost a lot of money. I'd be like, I thought this kid's done. He's saying like, oh yeah, I'm going to listen, but I thought it was just bullshit. And
it's his usual bullshitting.
Yeah, he's as into the show as anybody. Like it's amazing. He may have actually finally gone back and listened to the old episodes he pretended to listen to before. Like he's very into it now, which I like to see. So
that bet is a long shot, but the bet that he's like a gigantic Minifan now is an even bigger long shot. That's like 1,000 to 1 that he goes from a guy who at times didn't like seem to get the show, didn't seem to, I don't know, he didn't seem like that much into it when he was a producer. He was on the show, but it wasn't like this where he's in deep, he's on network shows, he's in troll chats, he's in all kinds of stuff. He's like neck deep. I wonder if what happened was he tried to kind of quit it and he got sucked in and was like, man, I can't, everything else sucks except for this show. He tried to listen to like friggin' whatever random podcast. So I was like, oh man.
Yeah. Maybe he got sucked in, but it is like, if you do look at Coleman, like if you step back and look at him honestly, like he had no idea what the show was, got a job where he was working every day on the show. Like he was just a kid that got laid off from Barstool and needed a job. So he applied to a show that he knew was hiring. He didn't really know what he was getting into. And so like I like that over time he grew, even though maybe he realized he wasn't right for the job or what Kirk wanted. But like the fact that that didn't make him resentful, where he became a guy that's like, fuck them. He's like, hey, maybe I'm not right for the show, but like I enjoy it. So, and like Kirk's mentioned this 1,000 times. Like once people leave, they're just like looser. And Coleman's a great example of that.
Yeah. When you're not in the line of fire, you can joke around a little bit more, and you're not worried about your job or.
Which is probably, and I can attest to this, probably what you should do on the show. Like you say, I'm more confident now. I should have been acting whatever I'm acting like now. I should have been doing that when I worked
Big shot
on the show, but it's just more difficult when you're in the position, I guess.
Yeah, you're just always nervous.
Yeah.
Are you nervous are you nervous during every show, or you've kind of settled in to where you feel like you're just fucking around?
During the just the day-to-day shows?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm like actively nervous. Like I'm aware of myself and don't want to fuck up, obviously. But like I think of nervous as like the first time I went in where I was like kind of short of breath, like genuinely
shaking, like what I said.
Yeah,
like what I said.
like that's when you say nervous, that's how I think of it. So no, on a day-to-day basis, I'm not like that. But you still try to be, mindful and not fuck up.
Yeah, like I think if I get to go back in again, I'll still be nervous again, and but I think it'll take less time maybe to acclimate and.
Sure, it gets easier every time.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. I mean, I felt in a wild way the first time I went on Kane's Corner. I hadn't been on a network show. I hadn't been anywhere, so I was like pretty nervous for just that on the first one, and then I've kind of settled in a little bit. Even if you see the first Brando show, I was pretty nervous with John from Scranton, and then I don't know. It's just like a practice makes perfect kind of thing of where if you do it enough times, it's like second nature.
Yeah, and you were right to be nervous around Kane for the first time.
Oh yeah,
but then you learn he's not such a bad guy,
Well, who's to say?
Right.
I think the jury might still be out on that one, but that's my producer, so I'm going to say he's innocent until proven guilty on whatever charges there are. Just a blanket statement.
I understand.
All right, you know about it probably. So let's see, what do we got? We got the Dana Newton. He was kind of waved the white flag with Justin, with Cully. He kind of was like, all right, I was wrong. I'm a big pussy. You said he was talking your ear off at the show.
No, I didn't say that. Mutt did. And then once he said that, I was like, I guess that was kind of true. I didn't think of him in that way. I wasn't like, oh my God, this guy's annoying. But then once Mutt pointed it out, it is true. There was a lot of sort of remember when, like WEI kind of talk. There, he did, once he got comfortable, he did start yapping a little more. I didn't think in like an obnoxious way, really, but he did. Once he got the temperature of the room and realized we weren't going to lambaste him if he spoke, he was a lot more chatty.
Yeah, and I briefly saw him at Laconia, and he looked like pretty normal for him. I met him briefly at the Aaron Hernandez thing, and he's one of probably the people that I talked to the most because we're two of the weirdos that were standing by the exit that Kirk talked about that weren't sitting down.
Okay.
So I talked to him like a reasonable amount. And he seemed pretty much like a nice enough guy. I think he just let this one get away from him, and he let the clout and everything kind of cloud his mind.
He even said that. I don't know if you heard me say on stage that he was sitting away from us. He was on like the opposite side of the room, and it was like me, Coleman, Clemmer, I forget who else was there at the time, and
Julie,
he's on the opposite.
Unfortunately,
I'm sure. Yeah, he's on the opposite side of the room, and it seemed like kind of afraid to come over, a little sheepish, and then he came over eventually. Once, like, I guess he felt comfortable, and when he walked over, it was kind of just silent. No one really said anything to him.
Yeah,
and he goes, "This one got away from me."
Yeah, I mean he's right on that one.
So I could tell he was. I mean, at least to me, unless he's just a bullshit artist, To me, he seemed contrite, and I was glad he called in on Friday because I was a little like uneasy is too strong,
Nervous for Conan.
not
Or
nervous for
Dan?
Coleman. I was like, is he going to be an asshole? Because in my mind, I was going to have to spend the most time with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, is he going to be one of these? Is he going to try and like get into it with me? Is he going to be filming me and when I don't want him to be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I thought, oh, is he going to be a guy that now that's his thing? He tries to start shit with everyone. And so I was glad to see he's not that. He's just a guy that kind of fucked up and was like, I mean, I still think what he did was shitty, but I think he knows that. So there's only so much you can beat a guy up if he's acknowledging he was wrong.
Yeah, and I don't blame Conan for not immediately forgiving him or for not giving him a fist bump or anything. He doesn't owe him anything,
For sure.
at this point.
I agree.
So in your own time, you can forgive him or not. It's kind of up to you at that point.
Absolutely.
So that was a decent little show to get everybody ready for Laconia. I don't remember a lot of what Coleman was saying, honestly, but I'll give Coleman an 80. I like Coleman in there, especially as a fan. I'll give him a B-.
You're tougher grader than me. I'm going to give him a 90. I thought he was very good. I thought he fucked with Justin a little bit, and kind of knew when he was supposed to, like knew when Kirk wanted him to give Justin a little shit and stuff like that. So
you convinced me.
I thought he was very good, and it was good to hear from. Wasn't it good to hear from him, for God's sake?
You bullied me into it, Mike. All right.
All right.
I give him an 86.
Okay, that's better.
Jesus Christ, with this guy.
That's
better. He's brutal. He's just a mean guy, as everyone saw in that video.
That's right. Yes.
He's just an angry, mean guy.
Don't
you
fuck
saw
with
what
me,
he said to Mama Kay.
That's right.
He wrote that.
Definitely.
So that's the only guy that was in there. I don't grade the producers or Kirk until like I grade them on the collective of shows instead of each one to make it a little less tedious. So I guess the next place we go to is we have Laconia. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And then we get to the show today, which I mean changes everything.
Yep.
How did you feel being in there today?
Well, it was interesting. Now it makes a lot more sense because I was surprised. There's a couple times we mentioned Julie, and I had what I thought were a couple funny Julie stories that I don't even know.
I have one quick one too. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't even know if we got to the ones I wanted to bring up. But I could kind of tell Kirk wasn't really into it. He was just like, oh yeah, she's whatever, and kind of moved on. And I was like, oh, that's a shame. And then with Mick, he was very like, hey, maybe I fucked up. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then in hindsight, now it makes sense that he was kind of looking at things, I don't know, with a more positive attitude because he's like, hey, I'm taking a break. I'm not
going to have to deal with this shit.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not going to waste today screaming about Julie or Mick when I've got, stuff I want to work on. So in hindsight, it makes a lot more sense. But yeah, it was definitely surprising. I guess I was less surprised than some other people, but it was still, even to me, it was still a shock.
Yeah. My Julie story is I was sitting for a while, and I think after intermission, I kind of hung by the back. And apparently I was like maybe blocking like where the video guy went in or the light guy and maybe the audio guy.
Okay.
And she pretty much ran through me like a freight truck, and she was like, oh, sorry. It's like, she's just you guys nailed it today. She runs around with it like a chicken with her head cut off, looking worried.
She's a busybody. I keep using this analogy, but are you a Seinfeld fan, Brando?
I've seen episodes here and there.
You might not know this reference then, but to anyone that does, she's Jerry's manager in Seinfeld. The pilot is in the audience. Like, she's just a busybody. She's very worried that Kirk's going to get pissed off. And I kind of tried to keep telling her the thing that might bother him most is if you keep saying, am I doing a good job? How am I doing? Am I doing okay?
That's like the opposite of what you should do, in my opinion.
It was infuriating for me, and I'm not in Kirk's pit where Kirk's got a million things to worry about. I was sitting there I wanted people to talk to me, and I was still like, what the fuck is she doing? So it's always strange to me. Like you said, where maybe you're a talkative, chatty guy, a little loud or whatever, but you listen to the show enough that you said, hey, when Kirk walks in, I know the drill. I'm always amazed more people aren't like that, where they think like, hey, is Kirk going to go to lunch with me? Or are we going to become friends? It's like, do you think the show is like an act? Like he's playing a character? Like that's what the show is. He's himself. He's not going to go to lunch with you. He's not going to be your buddy. I think that's why I've lasted as long, because I think if you look at our text exchange, the last time I probably texted him was a year ago.
Right.
So I'm very aware of what he's interested in as far as social interaction. So I'm amazed by some of the people that aren't.
Like if I was doing Julie's job, I would be saying almost nothing, like literally as little as I could to Kirk, and I would just be trying to make sure everything is going well, and definitely not asking him like, "Oh, am I doing a good job? Can I get a pat on the head?" Like I don't know if that's what she's going for, or if she's just worried.
It is. It literally is.
And good job, Julie.
Yes,
you ran from one side to the other.
Yeah. And I like Julie, and I enjoy hanging out with her at those things. She's a fun time, and seems like a very nice person. But it is bizarre that she's like completely. And it's not like we're lying. I say this to her over and over, and I empathize with some of her anxiety. But for that not to get through is very puzzling to me.
Well, we know sometimes those types are needy, if you know what I mean. They need the reassurance constantly, if you catch my drift.
Well, you said it, brother.
Ashley, don't listen to this. Or Alba. So I actually had a moment where someone was outside waiting after the show, and I didn't know if it was Alba picking you up for a minute. I was like, is that Alba? But I think it was just a random person that was there. So that was a funny little thing. I was like, I wonder if that's Alba.
It was not. It was
just a quick thought that just popped into my head. Like, is this the one? I didn't know of your ride situation. Did Justin give you a ride after the unnamed show? Is that what it was? Or you got it?
Oh! I got you. A ride home after the show. You're saying? Yeah, Justin gave me a ride
Thursday.
home. Yep. I thought you meant in Laconia.
No. Sorry, I'm jumping from one thing to another. As I've been known to do.
Oh no! You know what? Actually, I take that back. I took an Uber after unnamed.
Because you didn't want to wait for him or something, or.
Yeah, I wasn't just gonna stand there and wait for him. I live like 10 minutes away, so it's not that big a deal.
Oh, that's not too bad. It was like a little over an hour and 10, hour 20 for me, so it wasn't like insane.
Right.
It was semi-reasonable.
Nice.
So they talked about the Oscars a little bit today. I'm not a huge movie guy, like I said. You watched some of the Oscars?
I did, yeah. I watched it mostly in clip form because I was actually watching the clips while the Oscars were on, because they upload them so fast now, and I could kind of pick and choose. I didn't have to watch the acceptance speech for best animated short or anything like that. But like, yeah, I'm I guess closer to you than Kirk but somewhere in the middle, where like I'm interested in the Oscars. I like movies, but I'm not as well versed as guys like Kirk and Jeff when it comes to a lot of that. Or
Clemmer. Yeah.
But the only movie I saw that was really up for any awards was A Real Pain, which I liked a lot, and I was glad Kieran Culkin won, and I thought it was a great movie. But a lot of the others just like didn't interest me. Like I'm sure the one that won, Honora, I'm sure it was a good movie, but like when I hear the plot, and maybe this is wrong of me, maybe if I watched it, I'd really like it. But like when I hear the plot about a Russian stripper and an oligarch, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'd really give a shit about it, I like A Real Pain is about two weird guys trying to get through their relationship. Like that's the kind of movie I am into.
Yeah, that sounds like something that I'll probably watch now, because that sounds decent. I didn't know any movies that they're talking about.
Yeah.
It just seems so random, some of these movies that win now.
And they always, the thing like that is I used to hate about the Oscars, and now I just kind of find it kind of funny, is like that Amelia Perez movie. I've seen like the trailer for it and a couple clips. It looks horrible. But it's about a trans person, so they're like, "We'll nominate this." And
yeah.
But
Yeah, that does seem to be the thing, but I know you used to be fighting that cancel culture war, but you've seemed to kind of succumb to okay, this is
Yeah.
kind of how it goes now. So
Well, I
I'm not
saw a
going
lot
to
of
be railing against it so
I
hard.
I'm sure I still have the same stance on a lot of stuff, but I saw it take over a lot of people's identities where
Yeah,
they became like consumed with that. Where at a certain point, like the people watching you and listening to you, they know your stance on it. You're not necessarily
yeah,
changing any minds. There's still times where it comes up, and I'll talk about it when I think it's important or interesting. But for the most part, it's like, and now things have cooled down to where like no one's losing their job over anything silly. Really, it's been a while since we've had a story like that, so I think we have evened out and swung back to normalcy
yeah.
a little bit.
I would agree with that. That's a Joe Rogan crutch. Is like when I listen to too much of him, he has the same stories and the same like I don't know if it's cancel culture, but some of the stuff he gets into is like, oh, I already know your opinion on like if
Yeah,
trans athletes should be in this or that. It's like you don't like you're saying, you don't have to reiterate it every single time because the audience knows where you stand on it if they know you.
right, right, and then it just gets boring if you know exactly what someone's going to say about it.
And we know it's gonna be just pandering at the Oscars and some of like the Oscars, Emmys, all this stuff to me. Some of it is just like I don't feel any connection to any of these people that are like rich and famous in a way. I'm more into podcasts or like into watching some dumb YouTube thing than being obsessed with what Will Smith is doing or something.
I do think that's why podcasts are so successful. It's like something Stern kind of created with radio. The podcast really took and ran with that. Like you feel like you have a relationship with that person where like you can watch Leo in every movie he's ever done, but you don't know the fucking guy at all. And
Yeah,
you don't actually know podcasters either, but you get the sense that you do, especially the
yeah,
honest ones like Kirk, for example. Like a good amount about his personality and his life and all of that. So you have more of a connection with that type of a show.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can relate, and it seems like a real guy, like you said, especially with Kirk. Now,
Yeah.
I know you said you were pretty shocked, or somewhat shocked at least, about the hiatus of the show.
I
You
was I
must
was
have been abs-
surprised. I was surprised it was happening today, like right away, because I thought he said it was going to be a little while, and I was surprised it was only 5 weeks. Those are the two things I was most surprised by.
but you must have been absolutely flabbergasted that Mutt is going to interview Pedro Martinez in New Hampshire. Were
That's a
you
good.
beside yourself?
That's a very good name. That's better than. That's a bigger name than. Well, I mean, I guess like Ray Bork, if you're a hockey fan, is probably of equal stature, if not greater. But like I loved Pedro growing up, so he's probably my favorite Red Sox. So that's a good name.
All right, fair enough. Well, I was giving Mutt a hard time, but I might, who knows, I might end up at that thing. We'll see if that thing gets turned into like, I was wondering because there's no KMS. I wonder if all these different side kind of shows will end up being like Minifan get together type
Oh,
deals. Like how many
interesting.
Minifans will be up at
What was the
like
date? Do you
Mutt
remember
stuff? The 27th, I think.
of this month?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good chance for everyone to get together before the show gets back.
Yeah, like maybe some of these little side things are where people get together. Like if Mutt was still doing the sports book and there was no KMS, maybe you'd see more people. I know I would have went to a lot more of those if
Well,
I didn't have my truck yet. I wasn't driving, so I would have. That's only like 30 minutes from my house. Is the sports book live?
if Aton Shander and the Bomber are involved, I'm nowhere to be seen. But
Yeah.
for something like Pedro, that I would do for the Muttman.
All right. You'll make an exception for Pedro, but I agree. Aton Shander is kind of not kind of. He is just an asshole, and the Bomber's
Yeah,
not that far behind him.
I agree. I agree with you, buddy.
We know you're not a Bomber guy.
Not at all.
So, that's kind of the idea of the show. The other, the synopsis of what kind of happened today. I did hear Kirk say something about that I was like a blue collar guy or something like that. I don't know if he was insinuating of having me help. Justin
It seemed like
put
that's what he
together
was
the stat.
suggesting, that you're kind of a handy man if Justin needs
That
an
would be
extra pair
pretty
of hands.
funny.
Yeah.
I would be definitely into, like, if Justin said, "Hey, let's build a desk together, or let's build the studio and we could get some content out of it." That would be pretty funny
You should
to
reach
me.
out to him and don't let him ignore you. Make sure you get an answer out of him.
Yeah. Well, I also reached out to Dave earlier and just asked if maybe Kirk wanted to come on over the break, just because he said he'd come on the Brando show. If not, it's all good. But maybe if he can take an hour or so while he's on this break, I would obviously love that. I'd also love to have Dave on, and he said Dave said he would come on. So Dave and Clemmer will definitely be on during this break. So
That's
we'll
good.
try to be bringing you some solid guests and some solid shows in the interim.
Very good.
So today's show, oh God, I'm conflicted on what to give it. Why don't you tell me what what do you give Mutt today? We'll start with that. First performance back, it gets totally overshadowed. We didn't even say anything about Mutt.
Mutt's a hard one to grade today. I'll give him. That's tough, Brandon. You're putting me in a tough spot here. I'll give him an 85. I was gonna say 80, but
That's
you
where
know
I'm
what?
at, I think.
It's tough. It's tough to grade him because the show, as you said, was kind of overtaken by the news. There wasn't. It wasn't a day of Mutt's return. It was kind of about the show. It was about the live show and then the show taking a break for a while. So
Yeah.
it wasn't what some people might have anticipated with Mutt returning. So which is a tough spot. So I'll give him an 85, let's say.
I would give him an 80. So I think I was in the same general hemisphere. I thought it was just okay. He had some great little moments where, like, the old stuff was back. Kirk making fun of him for, like, interviewing Red Sox players, different stuff like that, where he takes stuff too seriously. That didn't make me laugh.
Yeah.
The stylist stuff is hilarious to me. Like, Kirk's like, what is the stylist doing for you? Like, how bad is your stylist that your hair looks like that? That was very funny to me.
I'm surprised he's so intent on clinging onto that hair because sometimes in the summer I'll just shave my head like when my hair gets too long,
Right.
just for heat purposes, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know why he was so resistant to it, but it seems like the wife doesn't like it. So you gotta
Well, I don't know.
keep her happy.
I'm kind of like torn on it because I think he kind of looks better, but he also kind of looks like a cancer patient in a weird way.
That's
So
probably what a lot of bald guys get at first, but then once you get
yeah,
used to it, you're not used to seeing them like that, you know?
that's true. It is a little shocking, like at first glance.
Yeah.
So I gave him an 80. I'm gonna give you. Oh, let's see, Mikey. For my buddy Mikey, I'm gonna give you a 90 because you handled everything so well. I'm gonna give you an A minus because
I appreciate that.
somehow
Brother.
you were mentally prepared. I don't know
Thank you.
how,
Yes.
but you were prepared.
I don't really know either. I literally didn't know anything. It's not like Kirk confided in me, but
Yeah,
I guess maybe I just took him at his word a little more than other people when he said there was a break coming of some kind.
yeah. Did you and him talk about it at Halfway Cafe after over lunch?
Of course, yes, yeah. We went to our
That's when
lunch.
you got into it.
We talked about how glad we were that Tommy Quinlan wasn't there, and then
Oh,
it was
okay.
a lovely afternoon.
Yeah, maybe plan like a vacation with you, him, Alba. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at with you with Mutt. Mutt gets overshadowed. It's supposed to be the day of Mutt. It also gets overshadowed by the Mick stuff, and I just want to put out there. I get where Mick's coming from. People should be compensated. My personal opinion, like for me, obviously, I'm just a giant fanboy. I would do pretty much anything the show asked me, and I'm not going to expect anything in return. Like I said, I'd go help with the studio. I'm not expecting to be reimbursed. I would have killed to be on stage at Laconia. I mean, I would have paid extra to be on stage and wave my arms around at Laconia. So I don't know really where you stood on that. Were you kind of with Kirk, like he just went about it wrong?
No, I get what Kirk was trying to say, and if Mick feels like, hey, I put a lot of my time in here, I'd like a better seat than the balcony, or whatever he was trying to say. I could probably wrap my mind around feeling that way. What I don't get with Mick, and it's similar to the North Dakota thing, where like I was with him for all this time, and he seemed perfectly lovely. And then the second it ends, he snaps and he hated it and he was miserable and all this. I like my advice to Mick, and he doesn't like when I give him advice. He doesn't have to take
Yeah.
it. I'm saying this because you're asking me, Brando. So I hope I don't get in trouble. But my advice would be like, say it earlier so you don't end up snapping. You know what I mean? If you're like, hey,
Right.
I got other shit to do. I have to, take time off of work for this or whatever the case may be. Like, it's a long drive for me to come back and forth. Can I be compensated in some way? Say that early. I saw one of his tweets where he was like, I know people are going to say like, Mick, you should have asked. They can blow me. But like,
Right.
it is, Kirk said he could do a better job of going to Mick and saying, do you need this and this, and this? And I would say if that's true, then it's true the other way where maybe they could meet in the middle a little bit and both be better at communicating. But I hope I hope Mick doesn't hate me now. I love you, buddy. I'm just trying to give constructive criticism because Brando asked for it.
Isn't that like one of yours and his only and biggest fights, right? Wasn't you were kind of telling him what he should or shouldn't do, and that's when you guys were screaming at each other? Was that in studio?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like my thing with that is like it would be crazy now for me to ask for back pay to go on the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I said, "Hey, Kirk, I can't really come in anymore unless I get this, this, and this," he could say yes or no. But I can't now go, "Hey, Kirk, for the last 3 years, you owe me this much." Like that'd be crazy, So it's like Mick has to think about working on things going forward rather than things that already happened that you can't be fixed now.
Yeah, and I had the same. I didn't spend as much time as you did. You spent quite a bit in the car in a tight space. But I played ping pong with him at Montante's house. He rode back in my truck back to Montante's mansion.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of good talks with him at the place. I mentioned that I go to the Cape sometimes, and maybe me and him could get together or like do something, and everything was totally cool. He was having a grand old time. And
that's the
then
part that
it's
confuses
exactly the
me.
Same thing.
That's the part that confuses me. He was not mood like Friday night. He seemed like he was in a great mood off the show. You did Mike and the Minifans, but even like off the show, he was making jokes. He was making fun of Julie. He was laughing. Seemed like he was having a good time. And like I always like being around Mick in those situations. So then when I see he's furious, I never know. I'm like, where did this come from? So
I think he's always just underneath steaming. Like he's putting on this facade of he's having fun, but he's always sitting there thinking like I'm getting fucked somehow.
Maybe, yeah. If that's true, then maybe that's why I can't relate to it because I wear that stuff. Like,
yeah,
I'm not good at hiding it. Where like I'm not saying I'm gonna like throw a temper tantrum, but if I'm in a bad mood, I kind of shut down a little bit. So maybe maybe he's just much better at hiding it than I am.
The only one thing I will say is he made some small comment when he was in the truck with me about, he said something in passing about Kirk being mad at him or something, like there's going to be some sort of fallout. It was just a quick like thing that he said, and he didn't really he didn't really elaborate, but he just had like a quick little tidbit. And I don't know if John and Warren also heard it because it was me, him, and John and Warren packed into the cab with Montante in the back. And other than that, everything seemed super cool. I got along with him really well. I told him I'm honored to meet you. Like you're a big part of the show. I'm a huge fan. And then everything seems to blow up. It seems to happen. I just hope he can get his mental stuff in check if that's the issue. And I just hope the best for Mick. I like Mick, so.
Yeah, I like Mick very much too. And the tweet that probably the most honest tweet he had was when he's like, I'm going through something. You know what I mean? Because like I feel like to then have a litany of tweets where he's like, fuck everyone. Maybe that is because he's going through something. I don't know him on that level. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm kind of
I hope he's doing all right.
Wildly.
Yeah, same.
Wild speculation from me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what led into the show. Then we have the show today, the hiatus. Is there anything else you have to say like about today's show that you don't think we really covered?
No, sad of end of an era with the desk and the studio, but and obviously I hope Kirk's all right. That's kind of a thing that got glossed over a little bit, but he talked about some of the stuff he's dealing with. It seems like it's not too serious given the fact that he's doing unnamed and mini golf and working on the case and stuff. So it seems like it's not crazy serious, and I hope that's the case. But Other than that, 5 weeks isn't that long. So everyone just try and, don't kill yourselves. Keep your chin up, kids.
Yeah, that's kind of where
Jesus.
I'm at.
Brando, there was a second I thought you
What?
did. I was like, is he still there? Jesus Christ. That was a long
I'm
pause.
getting stuff. I'm getting stuff coming in from the cane train producer wise that I
All
just
right,
wanted
all
to
right.
make sure everything goes swimmingly.
Thank God.
So yeah, he thought I was dead for a minute. He's like, "Oh, was that it?" I obviously slightly overreacted, mostly because I had just woken up and it was such a shock. And then when I sat back and thought about it, I said, "Okay, it's a month and a half. I can listen to other stuff. Maybe I can still do the show, and hopefully they'll still have me in like when I get back." And it sounded like from after my call, he said, "Hey, pretty much we'll have once we come back, we'll have you in." Is I think the way I took it at the end of my call, unless I'm mistaken.
Well, I hope that's true, Brando. I'd
Yeah,
love
if
to
not,
see
I might get lambasted if I'm twisting Kirk Minahan's words, but I don't mean any ill will. And I hope
Sure.
everything he's going through turns out okay, and I hope that his mental stuff is going well too,
Of
and the
course.
stuff with his stomach, or what have you. So, for the group of shows, I'm gonna give Kirk, especially with Laconia, I'm looking at like a 96. I think it was a killer week of shows and Laconia and all that. Where are you at with Kirk lately?
For the live show, you're saying?
I'm grading him
Oh,
on
I see. You're
4
grading. You're grading
shows.
him as a total.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 100 because I
All right.
know from somewhat afar. I'm not there for everything they're doing, but I know the amount of work that he puts in and how seriously he takes it. And I've never seen another podcast like that. In fact, you see much more to the complete opposite,
Yeah.
where people do live podcasts and show up with literally nothing.
Yeah.
They talk about their day and then they ask for like fan questions or something like that. So you see a lot more of that in podcasting as opposed to a guy who's, as he said today, basically putting on a one-man show. He's got a band, he's performing,
Yeah.
he's got videos going on, he's basically doing comedy, like because he's riffing by himself. Me, Dave, and Justin can't hear a fucking thing he's saying.
Yeah.
So he really is putting on a one-man show, and there's nothing like that in podcasting. It's
Or in
not
the world.
and a lot of the podcasts I listen to, it's like stand-ups that do podcasting kind of because they have to, to
Yeah.
promote their dates and kind of build an audience and stuff like that. So it's almost
Yeah.
like an obligation with them. Whereas Kirk puts such big care and passion into it that you don't get enough of that in podcast. A lot of people could learn from that, I think.
I agree with that. Like
100.
I listen to like Theo sometimes if he has someone on that I like, or a couple other people. I watch a bunch of Kill Tony,
Yeah.
which is a little different kind of type of deal, format wise, but he's gonna get
Yeah.
a 96. Justin and Cully, I'm just gonna group them together because to me they both worked on Laconia. They've both been around the same. I'm gonna give them both a 90. I think they're A- territory. They had great weeks as well, in my opinion. Minus the one thing with Justin going to the casino, which I think was not the best idea, but luckily for him, Laconia was a hit.
Do I grade them together or individually?
It's totally up to you, Mike.
I'll give them as a duo. I'll call it a 98. Like you
Wow.
said, I guess there's the casino thing. I can't think of a lot they could have done better, and that's a tough week for them, And that's and especially now knowing Kirk was going to announce that he was taking a break or whatever, it could have been truly disastrous if they fucked
Yeah.
something up and then the
Oh,
show
yeah.
was off for 5 weeks. So knowing that, I think 98 is a good grade for those boys.
Thank you for that, Mike, because that puts me above the producers and just below Kirk Minahan himself. So
That's exactly
with
right, Brando.
with
That's
the
how
Brando 99, I know that's not an accident.
absolutely not. That was meticulous on my part.
Yeah, very well thought through, I'm sure.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the idea of the show. We go through everything, and then if you have a couple more minutes, I usually take a couple quick questions from the chat. If you still got a few more minutes, if not, you could sign off.
Hey Brando, it's your boss here. Will you take questions?
Kane,
Will you take questions
Kane.
from people who jump in the show?
Sure, if you want, you're my boss.
Is he allowed
so
to do
go
this?
ahead.
Is this what you were
Yeah,
talking
I
about
guess
earlier,
he's
Brando?
allowed, yes,
This is
yes,
this
he
is what
said
this guy
Manners is
does
in-
to you?
Yeah, he says Menner's in the green room. I go, do not let him on. Whatever you.
Mike, what are you going to do for the next 6 weeks?
I have no idea, Menners. I'm gonna
All right,
wander
well,
the streets aimlessly
okay,
and
okay.
watch Orlando
into
Magic
stuff.
simulators.
Well, I've got
That's
good
cute.
news for you. I've got good news for you, Mike. KMN is not going anywhere. The Kirk Minahan Network is going to plow through this break. We're even going to try and do some Rebel shows. So, yeah,
Wow.
hopefully you can join us during the break. But KMN is not going anywhere.
Wow. That was like George Bush throwing out the first pitch at the World Series. That was the rebuilding we needed.
We're actually going to do a KMS style show. But like me, John from Scranton's finally going to get his chance to produce. I was going to have Mick on as a co-host, but clearly that's not going to happen now. So,
What do you think about that? I don't have too much longer, but what do you
Yeah.
think about that, Menners? Where do you stand on Mick? I'm curious.
I don't like the victim mentality. Like, I totally understand where he's coming from. Kirk admitted they could do better. Firstly, I think Julie's to blame. This was a crossing the I's, dotting the T's thing. She didn't take care of this. But I hate this victim mentality. If you don't want to go and pay your own way, either don't go or you reach out a couple of weeks ago and you say, hey, do you have a ticket for me? And if you really want to be ballsy, say, can you put me up in a hotel? But don't go and then complain about it. It's that generation. That's a millennial through and through. You go and then you bitch about it afterwards.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like my thought would be maybe Mick's it doesn't want to come off like, oh, if I ask for an upgrade or if I ask for tickets or whatever, I'm gonna get roasted on the show and they're gonna bust my balls. But then he also has the instinct of like, well, I'll just throw a flamethrower on Twitter. So he doesn't mind that, you know? So I don't know why he doesn't just do it earlier because then it could be solved.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just that's the frustrating part about Mick. He internalizes a lot of stuff and then he just explodes. But it's immaturity. So yeah.
All right.
So we'll have the Blind Mike project then over the break. You know, you and Craig will step up, keep
Of
doing
course.
shows.
He'll still be doing his normal stuff if I had to guess. He's not.
Yep.
The Blind Mike project doesn't stop for anybody.
You're goddamn right, Brando. I appreciate that.
And I just want to congratulate you, Mike, on navigating through Brando's marking grading system. I don't think he's quite locked down the system yet, but you did really well. And good thing for you, Mike, your vision is impaired because the twitches for Brando are going off the charts tonight.
Brando, kick this guy out of here. You don't need this.
I can't. He put himself in. Kane said he can't.
I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
Ridiculous.
You said questions. I've been in the back.
You have a show after this. Thank you, Kane. You have a show after this. The guy's become a tyrant. Sorry,
I can't sit here while Brando's spoken to like that on his own show. It's
I know. He just jumps in and starts taking over, asking you a bunch of questions. I appreciate it, Menners, but I think I'll take it from here. And now we've wasted almost 90 minutes of Mike Geary's precious
It's all right.
time.
I could still answer questions.
If you just want to do one or two quick, Kane, pop a couple questions from the chat up. We already got a few technically from Menners and some announcements there too. That's what's the most effective takedown in wrestling? I don't think that's really related to Mike, but
That's not for me. Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Next, give me a couple Mike questions, Kane. This is a big moment from. And in closing too, while we do this, I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day, in all honesty, and coming on and being a part of the Brando show in general.
My pleasure, buddy. I'm sorry it took so long to figure out a time I could do it, but I appreciate you putting up with me, and I'm glad we finally got it done.
No, of course, and honestly, I thought we had like pretty decent chemistry in there when we were in.
I genuinely, I enjoyed being in with you, so that I was happy to do it today.
The Patriots stink again. Says, when does Mike expect to see again?
That's mean.
That's uncalled for.
Just for no reason.
Just for no reason. We have the guy on, he's great, and then the comments just start insulting the guy. Maybe like when he's in heaven, like they'll give him his sight back, or I don't know.
I like that Kane's like, oh, he didn't like the wrestling one. Here's one he'll enjoy.
Here's a good one to really keep the vibes up. Let's just insult the guest. No, but you're very good at rolling with the punches, and obviously you've heard every joke. And it's the only thing with me is like that's the easiest thing is to like it's like Julie at the Mike and the Minifans. You're ragging on her, and she gets defensive. She goes, "Well, you can't see, Mike." It's like
Yeah, there were a few of those
easiest
over the
thing
weekend
to
from
be
Julie
like,
that I got a little annoyed with, but
that's all you got. Like I don't know. To me, it's just the easiest, stupidest kind of joke. Like I don't know.
yeah, but I try and remember because I used to get more frustrated by it, but I try to remember like it's the first time that person is making that joke to me. Like they don't realize I've heard it 11 million times, you know? Like I used to think like, oh my god, again they're saying this, and then I'm like, oh, it's a different individual. They don't realize.
Kane pop up. Ashley's again. I'm gonna take that one, and that's probably gonna be it. Sorry, Mike. I just wanted to. I'm just
No, you're
gonna
good.
take one more. My girlfriend asked, "Who would Mike's favorite third chairs be?"
Well, Brando's up there.
All right, I appreciate that. You probably were gonna
But
say Mick before that. Well, it still might be Mick.
I do enjoy Mick. I think my favorite person to be in there with is probably Mutt. I think
He
it just
seems like a good vibes guy. I'd love to be in with Mutt when we come back. That'd be great. That'd be cool.
it's the easiest like when it's Mutt in there, even when I remember when before Cullinane worked for the show and Coleman was out or something, and I think like Mutt filled in for him. So it was me, Mutt, Dave, and Justin in with Kirk in like a kind of a different form. You're like, okay, this is everything's firing on all cylinders. So Mutt's
Yeah.
probably my favorite person to be in there with. I like being in with Clemmer a lot, obviously.
Yeah, he seems like a good dude to be in with too.
I'm not in. I'll tell you who this though. This is a different way of answering. When I'm not on, I enjoy when like Montante and Mick are on.
I'd
Probably
say
are the top two.
those are up there for me. I like a good Montante appearance. He hasn't been on a ton lately.
That's what I mean. And
Because he
I'm
lives
never
so
really
far
in.
away.
I'm not in that often with those guys. Usually I'm not on when they're on, so I don't know as much. I've always the few times I have been in with Montante and Mick, I always enjoy it. So
All right. Well, once again, I want to say, Mike, thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for all the effort and stuff you put into KMS in general. I've recently become more of a Blind Mike Project guy. I've been listening to most of them on Sunday for something to listen to. I'm a
I
big Why
appreciate
You
that.
guy. I've heard almost everyone. And if
Well,
you
thank you,
ever
buddy.
need another person on either of those programs, I mean, I would be happy to help if you're ever looking for another voice.
I
I'm
will
not
keep that
trying
in
to
mind,
force
buddy.
myself in, but if you're looking for somebody who isn't Craig Coney
That
or
is an enticing offer. When you put it that
yeah.
way, I like the sound of that. But thank you,
But
buddy.
I'm gonna let you if you have any last words for YouTube and the fans out there. This might be the last they see of you in this
E-
form for a little while.
Everyone, keep your chin up. But look at it this way: when the show is on the air, 5 weeks is nothing. It flies by. So try and think of it that way. It will seem
Yeah.
longer because the show isn't around. But like, what was happening on the show 5 weeks ago? You know what I mean? I don't even remember. So, or 6 weeks ago, whatever the
Oh
amount of time
God,
is.
I couldn't really pinpoint it because it moves so fast where you forget about shit that happened even like a week ago because everything it's so quick.
Right. 6 weeks ago is before like the Justin Lego stuff happened. You know what I mean? Like,
Way
think about
before.
how much stuff has happened in the last 6 weeks, and it flew by. So
6 weeks might be like his old teacher or something, Mr. Guptill or
Guptill.
something, or even before that.
Exactly. Yeah. So think of it that way. It flies by. It's like nothing. Keep your chins up, America, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for having me, Brando.
All right, thanks, Mike. Have a good night.
You too, buddy.
All right, folks. Well, Mike, I thought did a great job. I like Mike as a guy. I think him and I could be good buddies maybe one day. Who knows? Maybe I train in Andy Mayo for Mike. I still like Andy, but it's hard sometimes being Mayo's friend, so you never know. But I think that's pretty much all we got. Keep an eye out. I might I think I'm gonna try to keep doing some form of the Brando show going forward. Keep an eye on Twitter to see for updates and enjoy Menors Live. I think it's going on at 9. You got a little tidbit at the end of my show. But make sure you tune into that and tune into all the network shows because I mean it's gonna be some good content hopefully in the time we don't have KMS. So I think that's about it for Brando. Signing off till next time. Thanks.